is Firebird International Raceway, scene of the 5th annual Super Bowl of drag racing. These are the Nitro Warriors, the tough guns of the quarter mile. Quick draw artists of 1,320 feet acceleration drag racing. 1987 Top Fuel World Champion from Lansing, Michigan, driving the beautiful golden white Miller High Life entry, Dick LaHaye, car wrenched by his daughter Kim. In the Castro GTX, new lightweight Top Fuel Dragster, wrenched by Lee Beard, Gary Ormsby. Gene Snow in his brand new short wheelbase Superlight Top Fuel Dragster. From Old Forge, Pennsylvania, 1984 World Top Fuel Eliminator Champion, driving the Keystone TRW Hearst Top Fuel Dragster, wrenched by Tim Richards, it's Joe Amato. In the 1988 Budweiser King Buick Riata, wrenched by Dale Armstrong. Ladies and gentlemen, the world champion 3 years in a row, Kenny Bernstein. In the brand new 1988 Dodge Daytona, sponsored by Hawaiian Punch and wrenched by Roland Leong, it's Johnny West. Ready for the 1988 drag racing season, driving the awesome Skull Bandit Pontiac Trans Am from Granada Hills, California, Don the Snake Prudhomme. At 53 years of age, a veteran of the quarter mile, former Top Fuel Dragster pilot, driving his latest Fireman's Quickie Fuel Funny car, it's Jim Dunn. From Hemet, California, driving the gloriously finished Miller High Life entry, it's Ed the Ace McCullough. The quickest funny car in drag racing at 5.34 seconds. The mighty Austin coil-tuned Castro GTX Oldsmobile of John Force. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For main event video, this is John Lundberg, and we're at Firebird Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona for the 5th annual Super Bowl of drag racing. And this 1988 Sunday in late January has seen many interesting innovations introduced to the sport. A particularly fun weekend for me as a long-term drag racing enthusiast, as I've had the opportunity to spend this weekend in the pits with this man, multi-time world champion and legend of our sport, Big Daddy Don Garlits. Well done. The Super Bowl of drag racing has become sort of a first event of the year for many new innovations in the sport. What do you see as the leading innovation here this weekend?
Well, John, I think the leading thing that we've seen this weekend is the multi-stage clutch, especially the 4-speed introduced by Austin Coyle on John Force's car. There's some other innovations back there, but this one stands head and shoulders above everything else because they have generated a 5.34 ET, and I think this is a sign of things to come in 1988. So watch out back there in the pits, funny cars, and the guys that got the 6-finger clutches and 9-finger clutches are in big trouble.
5:34, the quickest funny car run ever turned here in qualifying yesterday. The early publications of the national trade papers have said that, well, the guys were talking about maybe a 5:30 at mid-season. Well, we've already seen one here, and you're going to see more of that today as main event video brings you Nitro Warriors here at Firebird Raceway at the 5th annual Super Bowl of drag racing. Ladies and gentlemen, the cars behind me have started. It's the number 4 against the number 8 qualifier with IHRA 1987 Top Fuel World Champion Gene Snow in the Tower Lane. In our lane, a 20 car converted to a dragster with Trip Shoemake at the wheel, and it's burnout time at the Super Bowl of drag racing. Well done. Gene Snow is the 1987 IHRA World Champion, but had a bit of teething troubles here as he blew his motor trying to qualify on Thursday. In a Tower Lane, a converted 20 car. Tires are hot, we're ready to drag race. First heat, first round of the Super Bowl. And coming into stage, Trip Shoemake waits in deep stage. Gene Snow moving up very, very around and down a quarter mile. And as we thought, Trip Shoemake having problems. Snow goes 5.30 seconds to win. 264.70, and a good step up for Gene Snow.
Figured at 5:41, he's still just kind of getting the feel of that new car, and I anticipate he'll go into the 5:20s on the next round. Of course, on the other side of the track, the short car, I've tried that before, you know. The short cars are really ill handling, and as you see, he got in trouble across the center line, spun the tires. I think the long cars are still in control. And you notice he always pulls over to the side of the drag strip at the end of the burnout. This is because he has a large fuel overflow, and sometimes he drips fuel on the drag strip. So consequently, he doesn't want to run in that fuel. So he pulls over to the side. This is a very different, distinct characteristic of his racing. Also, Coletta has been doing some experimenting with a low compression engine, and that's why his time in qualifying wasn't all that good at a 6:12. So I imagine that Coletta is hoping that he's getting his act together right about now.
And there's a dry hop by Coletta, far more aggressive than his original burnout, Don. What's the reason for that?
Well, he's testing. He's like he has the door. He's trying that low compression engine, and he's trying to get the horsepower. So he needs heat in that motor.
There it is, number 2, hard burnout for Coletta, trying to build heat. As Ormsby, with his new Super Light Top Fuel dragster, has backed into stage in the left lane. Coletta now taking his time, pulls his face mask down, and rolls the brand new Bounty Hunter into stage. Here's Ormsby.
Ormsby's out first. Ormsby smokes the tires, but gets there first with a 5.64.
Speed for Gary Ormsby is 254.96 miles per hour. Coletta's runner-up a lap time almost equal at 564, but look at the speed. 20 miles per hour slower at 242.58. The motor just laid down about 800 feet out, didn't it, Don?
Well, plus Coletta was a little late on the light there. You saw Ormsby was out about a half a car on him coming out of the gate, and that's what made the difference with the identical ETs. And of course, Coletta's motor did go down on the top. It was a little sluggish down there. And Ormsby powered by him, even with all the tire smoke that he was getting.
572, runner-up a lap time with a 242 mile per hour speed for Connie Coletta. Ladies and gentlemen, here come the next two cars. And this is going to be Joe Amato, number 2 qualifier at 5:26.1. He'll be running against Gary Beck.
Gary Beck qualifies at a 5.66. And that's the best run that I think I have seen out of that McGee engine. That's that double overhead cam engine from Australia that the guys have been up here for years struggling with it. And Gary Beck has run over here and given them a hand, and they seem to have a fuel curve. So we're looking for some good things out of Gary Beck.
Okay, and here comes Amato.
Joe Amato, the world champion, 1984, and then the number 2 man in the world in 1987. A force to be reckoned with, and he has run a 5.26 here.
We are told, Don, that Tim Richards has a very, very conservative combination in his car for this drag race. Because of the brand new race car with the weight moved around a bit, Richards wanted to make sure that the car would move all right with last year's combination before he stepped it up. But if he's going to win this drag race with a hay number 1 at a 5.22, something's going to have to happen today.
Yeah, he's going to have to step it up, and I imagine it's right now because with Gary Beck, the McGee engine is shut off. Gary Beck is not in the race. Amato's on a single, so he can stand on it if he wants to. If he smokes the tires, he's still into the next round.
Right, they'll stay close together in the bracket. Amato may be charging off this time for lane choice in the second round. Well, the crowd is cheering behind us, Don. Why?
Well, you see the 5:19 on the scoreboard. Richards did, in fact, step it up. He's ready for LaHaye, and I guess what you might say, it's back to you, Dick.
And all of a sudden, this is a brand new drag race. The next two cars are ready to go.
Can you imagine the thoughts going through Dick LaHaye's mind right now, folks, as he looks down the racetrack and sees the 5:19 up on the scoreboard? He's strapped in the car, and he doesn't know whether he's going to be able to do that or not, or smoke the tires. And I'll tell you what, from a personal point, that is some real stress, believe me. The worst thing in the world you could do is put a number up on the board like that for your competitor to look at. It's got to run behind you.
And of course, once again, the thing that Dick has been able to count on all through the 1987 season and for the past 3 or 4 is the incredible talent of his daughter, Kim LaHaye, in tuning this vehicle. People at Carcraft Magazine honored her last year with an All-Star Crew Chief Award, and she's definitely a factor in the campaigning of this car, is she not, Don?
Yeah, she is a young lady that actually works on the cars. She's not just out there for looks.
All right, the gauntlet is thrown. It's no prisoners drag racing here in this last heat of the first round of Top Fuel Eliminator. LaHaye number 1 at 5:22 against former alcohol dragster pilot Dennis Forcell. Now on nitromethane, number 5 qualifier at 5:49. It's burnout time. Last heat, first round, Top Fuel Eliminator at the Super Bowl of drag racing.
Made a nice burnout. He always makes a good long burnout. He likes a lot of heat in his tires. And you notice LaHaye is one of the fastest cars for backing up in this sport. Sometimes they say he goes faster backwards than forward.
Dennis Forcell in the tower lane with his brand new Cable Value Network car against the Miller High Life Top Fuel dragster of world champion Dick LaHaye, running against a 5:19 that LaHaye can see. It's still on the scoreboard at the end of the quarter mile. So let's see what happens as Dick LaHaye charges off down the quarter mile as number 1 qualifier in this program, knowing that 1984 world champion Joe Amato is 300ths a second ahead of him. His best time so far, 5:22. Amato just ran 5:19, and now it's LaHaye, 5:17. Don LaHaye just ran 5:17 at 269 miles an hour. It's no prisoners.
It's like back to you, Joe.
Now let's spend a few moments talking about Joe Amato's crew chief, Tim Richards. You know, one of the really neat things about the Amato program is that previous to his emergence as world champion, there are no big name crew members. Amato started drag racing alcohol dragsters in NHRA's Division 1 and Division 2 in the mid-1970s, progressed through alcohol funny cars, and then into Top Fuel dragster. For 1988, Joe Amato has a brand new race car, but I understand that Tim Richards has a real conservative combination in the vehicle, or at least he did yesterday until he stepped up with that 5:19.
How about your combination here? We didn't see any smoke coming out of it on the 2 runs prior to this. Are you running a conservative engine combination?
It's fairly conservative. I've lowered the compression since last year, and we're trying to run fast without having the damage that we had last year. Toward the end of the year, we were able to muscle the car to go fast, but we're having a lot of damage with it. And LaHaye he's running real fast, and he's not having any damage. And really, that's what we're trying to get to that point.
Well, that's a good combination to try to work with.
You know, so far it seems like it's working, but time will tell when we get some power to it.
Well, it's looking real good so far here this race. It's impressive to see you come out here with a new car and run 5:19
2018 right off the bat. It's a little loose in the middle. I can see dust coming up from behind the car down in the mid-course, so we know you're losing a little traction down there.
Oh yeah, it's track definitely. Once you get out about 700-800 feet, it's plenty loose out there. I don't.
Computer show that?
Yeah, it's definitely showing it that we're getting some tire spin out there, and I don't really know what's going to happen when LeHay or us tries to add a little more power to the car, because
which is exactly what's fixing to happen.
Oh yeah, that's if we wind up in the final against them, I'm sure that's going to happen.
You said that Bob, you and Brooks worked this clutch out, and he sells it as a 3-stage, and you use it as a 4-stage. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that for us? And also about, does John actually have to shift this thing 4 times, or is this some kind of an automatic device?
Well, this thing is, well, starting from the scratch, what we have is a 12-lever pressure plate, and it's set up to where the car leaves the starting line on 6 clutch fingers, and then an additional 3 come in not too far down the racetrack. And then further on down the racetrack, you can bring in 3 more levers, and that's how it's run as a 3-stage. As a 4-stage, I have added some additional pressure controls on the clutch that enable you to partially bring in some of the levers at a selected time. And the whole system is run by a series of electric timers. I mean, my God, if the driver was doing this, it'd be like playing the piano on the way down the racetrack.
So once the driver has nothing to do with what this clutch does.
No, he just drives the car.
You determine this.
It's
where
all
you set
automatic.
the timer, so you can actually change it prior to the run. Obviously not during the run, but prior to the run, you can change the timing if you like to bring the levers in differently.
That's correct.
That really, then you can read the computer tapes and tell if you're getting more slippage in one spot or not, and you can adjust accordingly.
That's how it works.
That's perfect. You got a handle on that clutch.
Last year, here in January 1987, John Force won this race over the supposed unconquerable air tunnel-tuned Buick of Kenny Bernstein. This year, Austin Coyle has produced an incredible combination that saw a late afternoon blast yesterday here of 5.34 seconds, the quickest funny car run ever in the history of this sport. Don, what has Austin Coyle done to that car?
He has developed a 4-speed clutch, an unbelievable deal. You know, we had 1 speed, and then last year we had 2 speed, and at the end of the year we had 3 speed. Well, Austin has got a 4-speed clutch. That means they have taken total control of the clutch engagement on this car.
The result is the #1 qualifying position in this field at 5:34.6 as Austin Coyle prepares John Force for his first round pass here. And they'll be running against the brand new Hawaiian Punch Dodge Daytona of Roland Leong and Johnny West. #5 qualifiers here, half a second back at 5:82.5 and 247 miles per hour. John Force, burnout, coming up into the bleach box now. The brand new Hawaiian Punch Dodge Daytona of Roland.
I'd like to add also that Austin Coyle is a very similar type personality to Dale Armstrong. He never stops thinking. There's a lot of other little tricky things on that car, John, such in the fuel system that nobody knows about, that Austin Coyle is constantly working on and developing. And the difference between the Austin Coyle 4-speed and the Bernstein Armstrong deal is Armstrong and Bernstein, they sell their stuff, and Coyle doesn't sell anything.
Keeps his secret to himself. And that's the burnout. The car doesn't sound any differently, but at the beginning of the 1987 season, John Ford 5 supercharger combinations in a row due to crossfire between the 2 magnetos on the vehicle. So they started with 1 magneto. After their burnout, they pull it back to the starting line, put the body up. Austin Coyle clicks on the 2nd magneto, and these guys are ready to drag race. They roll into move. Remember, once the second light is on 7.5 inches away from a red light, and you're controlling a 4,000 horsepower car. 533, 243.24 miles per hour. And John Force, Don Garland, has just established the reality of that 534 lap time.
Yes, exactly. And did you notice, John, when the two cars went down the race track, it was no question. We didn't even need wind lights to tell who was winning the race. There's so much difference between the 540 and the 590 that anybody here knows who's winning well before they ever do. On the starting line, we have Don the Snake Verdone. Don was out a whole year, you know, as he kind of laid off and just kind of took it easy. Came back last year, did real well. The old Snake is back.
His competitor, the number 8 qualifier, Ron Sutherland's brand new Desert Red, a vehicle so new that it hasn't even been painted yet, a 1988 Chevrolet Corvette. Now it's the 7:99 qualifying time for Chris Lane, the driver of the Desert Red, with Verdone in the field number 4 qualifier at 5:62. So there's virtually no contest here. The Snake just running against himself.
Yeah, well, he's still got to get by this round to get into the semifinals. And believe me, you can smoke your tires. Anything can go wrong. You can break a rear. You can do anything. The Desert Red could win the race, but it's not done.
Okay, there's the burnout by the Desert Red with Chris Lane up, and here comes Don the Snake Verdone. It's the smell that's happening right now and the incredible sound of Fuel 20 cars and nitromethane and tire smoke.
Yeah, that's what put the people in the stands. They love that nitro smell. They love that popping in the pipe. This is a sport that is unequaled by anything in the world. No question about it.
First heat, first round, 20 car eliminators, the Super Bowl of drag racing, as Don the Snake Verdone kicks off his 1988 drag racing season right before your eyes. Snake Verdone, 5.69 seconds, 257.14. And runner-up, Ron Sutherland's car with Chris Lane up 573, 221.13. And coming up the stage, it's going to be Ron Fossil driving the Phoenix Dodge Fuel Funny car. And they're going to be racing former Funny Car world champion Ed McCullough. Number 2 qualifier here at 556.6, 261.62. In the Miller High Life Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Okay, burnout time for McCullough. And Andy Ace annihilates the tires coming out. Coming up very soon will be Chris Lane. As the Phoenix race car does its burnout, we'd like to mention in passing, by the way, that the Miller High Life team have all brand new paint schemes executed by Kenny Youngblood. And Don, of course, the graphic presentation of the vehicle to the spectator is a very important factor in drag racing just now with major sponsorships, isn't it?
Well, I like the new paint scheme on the Miller cars because it is more like the actual product they're advertising.
All right, backing it right in front of us now, Ron Fossil driving the Phoenix, a 1988 Dodge Aries against the Cutlass Supreme of Ed McCullough.
In the funny cars, the dry burnout is a lot more important than in a top fuel dragster. For some reason, the funny car, because of the short wheelbase, needs that extra clutch heat and needs those tires as sticky as possible so that they get traction leaving the line. Whereas a fuel dragster with a long wheelbase doesn't need quite such a sticky tire.
Recent indications are from timing on drag strips throughout the country that a funny car will accelerate from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 1 second. Now they're ready to go. Ron Fossil in the right lane. In the left lane, Ed McCullough ready to accelerate down the quarter mile. McCullough looking to go for a major win here. 5:30, the number to beat. Can he bring it on? The speed for Ed McCullough is 260.86 miles per hour. Runner-up Fossil and Baroni's car through the quarter mile at 6:55, 180 miles per hour. But ladies and gentlemen, coming to the starting line now is probably the most storied funny car team at this point in the history of the sport. Double-A Dale Armstrong, former alcohol dragster, world champion, and his legendary driver Kenny Bernstein, and their fruitful combination, the 1988 Budweiser King Buick Riata. They are in this field as the number 3 qualifiers at 5:57.7, and against them, of course, the legendary fireman from Southern California, Jim Dunn, and the Fireman's Quickie.
Yes, Dale Armstrong, you know, has really done some wonderful things in drag racing. The multi-speed clutch, multi-engagement clutch, whatever you'd like to call it, is Armstrong's invention. He was the very first one to have it. The carbon fiber bodies, that's Armstrong's work. Now they're talking about variable blower drive, more of the genius of Armstrong again. In fact, in that car, they even have automatic devices. They have automatic devices for shifting the transmission, leading out the motor, shifting the clutch. Everything is controlled automatically. More of the Armstrong genius.
Well, there it is. Pilot, perhaps more of a space capsule than a funny car. Kenny Bernstein is backed into stage the Budweiser King 1988 Buick Riata. Now, something our spectators should notice at this point, Don, is that for the National Hot Rod Association has demanded that instead of the Batmobile-style funny car bodies we saw in 1987, that these vehicles must resemble the vehicles that the fiberglass and Kevlar bodies have been copied from.
That's exactly right, and I can understand that, because if you're claiming to have a Buick, you better look like a Buick. Or if you got a Ford, you ought to look like a Ford. The fans expect you to, and I see no reason why they should be allowed to modify these cars beyond recognition.
There could be no additional comment at all about the fact that the cars won't run as fast because Force 534 puts that argument right on the trailer.
Exactly right.
Here we go. On virtually a lone win with a trap speed of 257.14. On a shutoff run, Jim Dunn dejectedly through the end of the quarter mile with a Fireman's Quickie at 10:14, 89.19 miles per hour. Well done. You may not have the exact number in your mind, but can you kind of peel off for us what incredible number of functions that Dale Armstrong monitors on that car as it goes down the quarter mile on each pass?
I can tell you exactly. He's monitoring 24 functions on that particular computer. The one that I had in my car at the end was 20 functions. A lot of guys are 15, 16 functions, but Armstrong's is 24 functions. So he gets a tremendous amount of data back at the end of the run, which he is able to correlate then and consume and make the car go faster for the next run.
Okay, at the end of first round of Funny Car Eliminator, we've had 2 560s, a 550, and a 540 by John Force, who still, at the end of the first round of Funny Car Eliminator, has a 1/10 of a second on the entire program of Fuel Funny Cars here at the Super Bowl of Drag Racing.
It seems like the crew chiefs have really been busy this winter. Ernie, at the risk of being redundant for all the people who've gone to drag races thousands of times, kind of give us a little breakdown of what happens before you take this car to the line for the next run. Now, you obviously come to the racetrack with a brand new engine, you're ready to go, you make one run. What do you have to do before you can run again?
Well, the first thing we do is we pull back into the pits. The guys, we pull the spark plugs out, drop lubricants, evaluate the condition of the motor. While they're doing that, I'm usually taking a tape off the computer and trying to analyze the performance of the run. At that point, Ed and I will usually discuss the performance of the car. Then we'll perhaps discuss it with the other crew members to get some more input. We evaluate that previous performance. Ed and I will generally start working towards improving the performance for the next run.
I think we ought to spend a little time today talking even more about crew chiefs, because literally the pit area is that guy's business office. It's where he creates, it's where he rebuilds, it's where he tries to go quicker, it's where he's under an incredible amount of pressure, perhaps unknown anywhere else in motorsport. Because in most motorsport competition, once the crew chief brings the car to the racetrack, his work is done. If the car leaves the race, it's over. Here, the crew chief literally has to diagnose every facet of that race car 3 or 4 times a day, and in many cases, completely reconstruct it in an hour and 10 minutes to make the next round. Behind me is the Budweiser King, a brand new 1988 Buick Riata. And also behind me right now, we hear the sound of Big Daddy Don Garlitz and Dale Armstrong, crew chief of this race car, bench racing.
Well, I mean, this thing, as I look at it, I mean, it's just mind-boggling. It's just amazing how technical it's gotten. But you kind of got there by degrees.
Yeah.
It wasn't like all of a sudden you did all of this.
That's like you take an automatic transmission out of a car nowadays and look at it, you think, who could ever thought of this? Well, they didn't all at once. You know, they thought of one thing and built on it, built on it, built on it until they finally have what the automatic transmission did. It's just the same with this. You put one thing on and it tells you something, or you see something, you go to the next something. That's where these ideas come from, is running the car and you see a failure here or a failure there, you see a weak spot here, and you think, well, how could we cure that?
But you personally know where every line and every wire on this car, because if I reach down and touch one, you could say, well, that does so and so.
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever feel any apprehension? You're on the starting line and you know you've set this thing for absolute kill. I mean, it's a serious race. I mean, your competitor could be close, and you know that you have got this motor right on that ragged edge, and any little problem could cause a problem that could be absolute dead serious potential. Do you ever feel apprehension about that? Or?
Oh, yes, I do all the time. I mean, a lot of times I'm up there in the starting line and I'm thinking about, man, should I richen this thing another 10, or should I? Because you're always thinking about... Because
you're kind of like, you take a certain moral responsibility.
Sure.
It's almost impossible not to.
Oh, sure you do. I mean, these in your hands. I mean,
the old joke about putting the apple in his mouth and say, make a good one, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Oh, sure. No, Ken knows that I would never send down that track. It's something that I wouldn't drive myself. But I kept thinking, man, you'd have to be crazy going to drive to one of these cars, and I still think that today. I wouldn't want to do it again.
Well, it's certainly not any better now than it was then. Right? I mean, these guys are really putting it out there.
They're not kidding. They're pulling over 4 Gs.
We're back at the starting line of the Super Bowl of drag racing. This, the second round of Top Fuel Eliminator. 4 competitors left. LaHaye versus Ormsby. LaHaye has lane choice. Amato versus Snow. Amato has lane choice. And again, the story of the first round, Big Daddy Don Garlitz, was 5:17 by LaHaye and 5:19 by Joe Amato.
Yeah, a truly impressive couple of runs, considering both crew chiefs are dealing with new cars, new engine combinations, and a brand new surface here at Firebird.
Tell me, does a guy like Gene Snow with a 530 have a chance to tune up and get back in the program?
Yes, he does. All Amato would have to do is a little slip, and Snow step up a little, and it could be anybody's race. Definitely Gene Snow has a chance.
Gene Snow and Joe Amato right behind us now. Amato in the left lane, Snow on the right. It's burnout time. Second round, Top Fuel Eliminator.
Make a real good, clean burnout, heating the tires up just right. Both cars are very confident. Gene Snow coming back real quick. But we're going to get back here and do another one of those dry hops.
Dry hop time as two Top Fuelers come back into stage. Gene Snow, 1987 IHRA champion of drag racing and Top Fuel. Joe Amato, number 2 in the world by less than 100 points in 1987, facing each other at the first event of the 1988 drag racing season.
Prior to this run, I was talking to Gene Snow, and he says, Big Daddy says, what's that right lane look like? I know Amato's going to flip me over there. I said, Gene, I think the lane is just fine because I hadn't seen one oil down here all day. This has been a very clean racetrack today.
Gene Snow pulls down his face cover, wrapped within the confines of a fully encircling helmet and a brand new race car. Joe Amato, like machine. In the last round, Amato ran 5.19 seconds. In the last round, Snow ran 5.30. This is it. An excellent drag race. Winner, Joe Amato, 5:33. 270.27. Runner-up Gene Snow, 5:28, 264.7. And Big Daddy looks like that race was won right on the starting line.
Yes, it was. Gene was just a little bit late, and that's all it takes in one of these kind of races. And notice how much Amato slowed over there, 5:33.
So as we go into the second heat of second round Top Fuel Eliminator, we're going to have Dick LaHaye come to the starting line to face Gary Ormsby, as it looks like Amato and LaHaye may meet in the final. They've started the engines for the Castrol GTX Top Fuel Dragster of Gary Ormsby in the right lane. Dick LaHaye, 1987 World Champion of Top Fuel Eliminator Drag Racing in the left lane. It's burnout time for Ormsby.
Now, Ormsby was off his pace just a little bit in round one from qualifying. Qualified at a 5:28, but then slipped to a 5:64 in round number one. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get back on their 5:28 pace.
All right. And there's the guy who's the fastest man on the property this weekend at 5:17. Don, talk for a minute about what it's like to try to pick up 0.4 of a second between rounds.
Oh, that's real difficult, John. It's virtually impossible because usually that takes major equipment changes on the car. You don't get 0.4 of a second by changing a fuel mixture or setting a mag a little bit different. This is a serious thing. Now, if you had a real slip and clutch, maybe you could do it. That's something we don't know.
They back in front of us now. A sound that is very difficult to speak over. The thundering, rumbling, ground earth-shattering roar of two 4,000 horsepower, 496 cubic inch V8 engines ready to blast into the twilight zone of drag racing right here at Firebird Raceway. Gary Ormsby at rest in the cockpit of the beautiful Castrol GTX Fueler. Dick LaHaye, his daughter Kim, looking at the engine as the world champion rolls forward to stage in his brand new golden white Miller High Life Top Fuel Dragster. All right, here we go. Ormsby is in. LaHaye moving in very slowly, as is his pattern.
Now, neither of these guys like the stage first. There goes Ormsby moving in.
There it is. Ormsby was in the lead for a moment, aces the tires and slows up. LaHaye goes 5:23 to win. 271.90. Ormsby smoking the tires at mid-course, shut off at 6:20, 1:55.44. What happened, Don?
There's a case, John, of
situation, 4/10. He needed 4/10. Well, they tried to get it. They tightened the clutch. They put more nitro in, and the car couldn't handle it. It wasn't set up for that type of a power deal, so what does he do? He spins the tires in the middle of the course.
The die is cast at 2/100ths of a second apart in the first round of Top Fuel drag racing. 1984 Top Fuel World Champion Joe Amato against 1987 Top Fuel World Champion Dick LaHaye in the final round of Top Fuel Eliminator.
And they're separated by 1/4 of a second. 5:23 for Dick LaHaye and 5:33 for Amato, automatically giving Dick LaHaye lane choice. Amato will have to probably come over here to the right lane. This could be very interesting.
All right, firing up behind us. Second round, funny car eliminator. Big Daddy, this is Don the Snake Prudhomme against Ed the Ace McCullough.
Very good race, because Prudhomme had a 569 and McCullough had a 560. So with the lane choice, you see McCullough has opted to take the left lane. But as we saw in that first round, Gene Snow went 528 over here in the right lane against a 33 for Amato in the left. So it could be there's no difference in the lanes.
Well, we'll have a further indication right now as forward comes the beautifully new painted Miller High Life Volkswagen. McCullough laying down his traction path, and now Don the Snake Prudhomme with his 1987 car, the Stoll Bennett Pontiac Trans-Am. How much of a measure of a car's ability to perform in this instance does the burnout give us, Don?
And the funny car is a lot more critical than a fuel dragster for the simple reason they got to have the tires hotter and the clutch hotter, or they could well spin the tires, because with a short wheelbase, the engine has put a lot of weight on the front wheels, not near as much on the rear wheels of the top fuel dragster.
As they back in front of us, Don the Snake Prudhomme, three-time former NHRA World Champion, and Ed the Ace McCullough, a previous champion in funny cars as well. Now, ready to race each other. And as Big Daddy Don Garlitz told you, they're just 9/100ths of a second apart based on first round winning. That's the Snake. Let's see how well McCullough does. Well, we saw quite a burst of very dark clutch dust coming out of the back of McCullough's vehicle on that dry hop, Don. Is that the purpose of the dry hop? Clean the tires and warm the clutch up?
Yes, it is. And that dust tells you just how loose that clutch might be. And obviously, they're running it loose to keep from having those tires spin.
They're in the race, ladies and gentlemen, at 9/100ths of a second apart. Two seasoned veterans of the quarter-mile sport. Now, it should be mentioned here that Don the Snake Prudhomme is racing with last year's combination. He will not debut his new vehicle until the next major event. Ed McCullough rolling into stage. Bernie Federle has that car ready to go. And let's see who goes into the final round of Funny Car Eliminator here at Firebird Raceway. Smokes the tires in mid-course. McCullough up on a beautiful run, goes 573. Speed at the quarter mile, 255.68. Smoking the tires in the right lane, 838 at only 104 miles per hour for Don the Snake Prudhomme.
Well, obviously he lifted after he smoked the tires in the middle of the course. It seems like it's just about the same spot that Ormsby smoked his tires. So there might be a little looseness right out there. It could well be, you know, two cars, two different teams. That's a good sign that maybe something is out there in that right lane that's not up to par.
Okay, Don, so let's talk about that for just a minute. What we've arrived at now is the reality of what lane choice is worth. If, in fact, Force, who's going to come up, just started his engine right now, is able to hold that 540, he goes into the final round with lane choice. Here we go. The cars are started. Fastest man in a funny car in drag racing on this weekend at 5.346 seconds. And here comes Kenny Bernstein in the Budweiser King.
And what we have here is a battle of the crew chiefs. We have Armstrong over here in the right lane, Austin Coyle in the left lane. I would say probably two of the smartest men in drag racing because of the innovations that they keep coming up with. They're literally running these cars from the back in the pit. The timers are shifting the transmissions, leading out the motors, shifting the clutches. It's an incredible technological thing that's happening here in drag racing.
They back into stage for the dry hop. Force at 540. Bernstein at 553, a 1300ths of a second elapsed time differential. All right, let's watch the dry hop. Now, the interesting part about this race is that last year, this was the final round of Funny Car Eliminator, and Force won the day. Now, Bernstein may have difficulty putting his reverser in. Obviously, the car is running, and the crew is out there trying to find out what's going on, Don.
And the body goes up. That's a real bad sign. Now, Austin Coyle brings the body up to put the other mag on. But in this case, he may have a problem down here. So we'll soon find out. Obviously, no reverse. They're pushing it backwards. I think the car is still running. They're backing him up. The reverser has obviously went out of Bernstein's car, and the crew has physically pushed this 2,000-pound monster back to the starting line. That just goes to show you how hard they want to race.
All right, when automation fails, you muscle it back to the starting line. Running up, tires smoking, Bernstein out, Force goes, 541. 541 for John Force at 267.85, and perhaps the world's most thoroughly prepared race car is out of horsepower.
Well, it's always good when you can win, and this day's happening. I don't know why it's happening, but a lot of work's gone in here from my team, and Austin Coyle especially in the last 3 months, and they've given me a car. It's like driving an automatic. Maybe I got me a race car like Bernstein has, and now we can race with them.
There's a little disagreement on the start line. I guess Bernstein's reverser broke and they pushed it back. You waited for him.
No, they wanted us to single because Bernstein was still sitting out there when I was staging, and no, we just waited a long time here to get a shot at him, and I was going to give him a little more time. So you figure you can outrun him. We're all trying to check our stuff out, and I wanted to race.
A lot of time elapsed, though, and those tires were allowed to cool down way too much. Consequently, there they were with smoke off the tires just off the starting line.
Hot engine, cool tires ends the second round of Funny Car Eliminator. So it sets up the final, Ed McCullough against John Force in the final round of Funny Car Eliminator here at the Super Bowl.
The driving anymore, but after I worked for Kenny for about 8 months or so, he had a problem with his neck and back, and we had a match race at Orange County we had to go to anyway, so he asked if I'd just go out there and make 3 runs for him. And I said, sure, okay, I'll do her, because I wanted to test the car myself anyway.
But you liked that, didn't you?
I thought, yeah, I'll get in there and do her, So we went out there, and I ran the car 3 rounds that night against competition. And I remember the first run I got in, I got the suit all on, they buckled me in again and put the body down. I remember thinking to myself, who would want to do this?
What am I doing here, right?
So we start from over and
This is it. The Nitro Warriors in final round competition. It's Funny Car Eliminator final at the Super Bowl of drag racing. In the left lane, with a 5:34, quickest run in Funny Car history to his credit, the awesome Castrol GTX Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, wrenched by Austin Coyle and driven by John Force. In the right lane, some 0.32 of a second slower, it is the thundering machine of Ed McCullough. tire smoke is blown out of the cockpit. The hatches are down. Austin Coyle turns on John Force's second magneto. And they now prepare for the dry hop. Up they come. Good response from both cars, Don. Now it's the last backup. For the last time, the driver looks at everything. A pair of Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, one sponsored by Miller High Life, the other by Castrol GTX. From the high desert country of Hemet, California, Ed McCullough. From Southern California, John the Brute Force, who in 1987 won his first major NHRA funny car drag race with Austin Coyle wrenching, hoping to have a real shot at the Funny Car World Championship in 1988. And of course, Bernie Federley, now looking through the cockpit window at Ed McCullough, has the same thought in his heart here in the final round of Funny Car Eliminator. And now, ladies and gentlemen, time to drag race. No prisoners. It's time now to move forward to deep stage. 7.5 inches away from the red light. They're out. Incredible amount of vibration from McCullough's car. John Force wins. 5:47 for Force, 2:67.06. 5:73 for Ed McCullough. You could just feel the vibration as McCullough's car traveled past us here on the podium. The runner-up speed for Ed McCullough, 204.08. Don, your final thoughts on Funny Car Eliminator.
Well, here's the situation where you can see the crew did everything they possibly could do and only duplicated the run before the 573. I'm sure both teams would have loved to have stepped up, but in this case, they did not. Force is the winner, and you can bet the crew is plenty happy about it.
Well, it was a good outing, and first of all, from my end, I want to thank my sponsors, Castrol and Jolly Rancher, Polaroid, and the Wax Shop, and a lot of guys that didn't get their paint on there because this car was very close to making it. And I want to give credit to my team for getting here through a sandstorm. And then Coyle here, he's going to tell you why it ran so good.
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest thing that came about that really matters the most is John Force and his sponsors. As over this past winter, he's come up with enough money to where he said we can play hardball, and I finally had the chance to see if some of my wild ideas would work. They appear to be working pretty good. Like when we get to Pomona, he asked me earlier what he should worry about, and we were going to make a run. I said, you ought to worry about a new hairstyle, because when we get to Pomona, this thing's going to run fast enough to curl your hair.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the final round of Top Fuel Eliminator. They wound up the 1987 drag racing season less than 100 points apart after 13 races. And here they are again, the first race of 1988, facing each other for Top Fuel Eliminator.
It's like they just took over right where they left off.
And the battle is resumed.
Yes, it is.
And here they come, reigning world champion Dick LaHaye in the Miller High Life Top Fuel Dragster in the left lane, in the tower lane. The Hearst TRW, Old Forge, Pennsylvania-based car of Joe Amato. Now it's burnout time for the Nitro Warriors. Now, Don, we understand that between rounds, LaHaye did nothing but normal between rounds maintenance. And Tim Richards was a little bit disappointed in the power combination in the Joe Amato entry. So, has he tuned it up?
Certainly. He would definitely have to tune it up. He said in a conversation that I had with him before the round that they had not stepped on it, and now they were going to.
Okay. Now, Tim Richards carefully looking over the back end of that Amato machine, hoping against hope that he's done the right things to the engine. And if anybody in drag racing can do it, Tim Richards is the man. The LaHaye family, look at their dad. It's time to go drag racing as Dick LaHaye and Joe Amato step up for the Top Fuel Eliminator final. Nitro Warriors about to... Tremendous run for Amato, aborted as the front wheels come down. LaHaye through. LaHaye wins Top Fuel Eliminator. Dick LaHaye, 524, 272.72 miles per hour. Joe Amato, 697 lifting and a 124 mile per hour trap speed at 124.30.
Oh, it left with power like you wouldn't believe. But you heard us talking about earlier in the day, they didn't want weight on this car. You saw the front end came up. It would not come down. It was going higher and higher, and Joe had to abort the run. He had no choice whatsoever. But they're trying to get this weight regulated on these cars where they don't have to put ballast. But as you can see, they needed 10 pounds on the front of this car at least, and they might have won the race. The car did leave awesomely.
There's no doubt about that. So that's exactly the way this race ends. Still, to some degree, inconclusive. There can be no doubt in anybody's mind that in the early going here, Dick LaHaye has definitely got the Miller High Life Top Fuel Dragster tuned up and running well on its new engine and clutch combination. But Tim Richards is not without tuning tricks up his sleeve. We understand that he's going to be testing here the 2 first days of next week, Monday and Tuesday, and who knows what's going to happen next week.
Stay tuned.